Today we're going to try making something from The Wonderful World of Honey, which I got at a book thrift store, Half Price Books. It is a sugarless cookbook, except that honey is a sugar. So we're going to see how it goes. This is by Joe Parkhill. Looks very 1970s. Apparently the fifth printing was in 1981, if that helps out any. And gonna give a try for honey oatmeal cookies. Sounds like a good one to start with, huh? Let's see how it goes. This recipe calls for 1.5 cups of honey to be creamed with 3/4 cup of shortening. So I have here some slightly crystallized, some a little bit waxy ends of a bucket of honey. So I'm gonna go in to my big old baking cup with that. Way easier to pour this way. Let's see, it should be 1.5 cups, but maybe it's not. Let's see. All right. Not quite 1.5 cups, not quite a cup. So I am going to find some more honey here, which may seem crazy, but in this house we got a lot of honey. So I have some slightly crystallized honey here as well. Both of these are actually from Panama Bee Farm and Honey Company. Fair notice, their family, yes, their honey's amazing. No, they don't ship. They're located in Western New York, so if you're ever there, keep an eye out for them. All right, that gives us 1.5 cups of honey. This is sieved honey, unfiltered, raw. What you see is what you get. Clunk. Okay, rinse my hands real quick. And I don't usually use shortening, so we're gonna give a go at 3/4 cup of shortening. As I said, this is not my usual go-to. I prefer butter. And yet, here we are, because that's what the recipe calls for. So let's see what we got. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 cup. Cut it right there. I'm gonna go into a bigger container here to help ease this, because I will be creaming this by hand. Okay, come on, shortening. There we go. Okay, let me get my fork here. I'm just gonna soften this shortening to start with. And then in with the honey. It seems like a lot of honey for my palate, but we'll see how these recipes go. Okay, here comes the honey. I'll get a spatula after that. So creaming this together, I am a huge fan of the fork for creaming. I like that it has slots in between. I know other people like a hand mixer. Good for you. I hate cleaning them. And call me old-fashioned, but a fork with a nice sturdy handle fits pretty well for me. So, still some lumps, but it's getting creamy. Creamy. Really quick. I think it's because the shortening was nice and soft, so that's something to remember. And it doesn't look like it mattered at all that the honey was crystallized or partially crystallized. In fact, it may have made it a little bit easier. Okay, that is creamed. What's next? All right, I've gathered some additional ingredients, and I'm supposed to add a beaten egg to this creamed mixture, pretty typical for a cookie recipe. No, I did not beat the egg first. Follow along if you want. Pick on me if you want. I know these eggs are fresh. I don't mind beating them in the bowl. One of the reasons, at least growing up with chickens, that we would beat eggs separately or crack them separately is just to make sure that they were still good, because there'd be a lot of eggs and you never really knew when they were from. So that's the egg taken care of. Now I'm going to grab a second bowl here. We're going to deal with our dry ingredients. Oh, big tall shelf, big batch of bowls. Let's go big, just for safety's sake. So we have 2.5 cups flour. I have some regular all-purpose flour here. It says Sift. I don't think I own a sifter. Yes, I know that I can put it through a sieve onto a piece of paper. No, I don't use it. Okay. One cup. 2 cup. Half cup. Should I be more precise? Maybe. We're going to find out. All right, that's the flour. Then we're going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I have some salt here behind the camera. Salt. 1/4 teaspoon soda. Yes, I'm using the same teaspoon for all of it. That's 1/4. I'm going to call it 1/4 anyway. 2 1/4 teaspoons baking powder. All right, all of that active baking powder. Let's see. 1, 2. I'll call that 1/4. And cinnamon. Got this huge thing of ground cinnamon at the Amish dry goods store. If you know, you know. 1 teaspoon cinnamon. Cheers. I am going to use a fresh fork for this because I do want to be able to break up the pieces. So I'm going to grab that. And if I use the wet ingredient fork, then I would have gotten some clumps here, and I want to make sure that the soda and powder and cinnamon don't just clump together, that they do disperse throughout. Okay. That's pretty well mixed. Now this is supposed to be added to the wet mixture. However, because of the size of the vessels, I'm going to do it the other way around. So, creaminess into dryness. We're going to see how this goes. Do it half and half here. Let's see if we can get rid of some of that glare. Yes, no, maybe so. Nope, sun's just going to be the sun. So this is feeling really soft and tender right now. probably just because of the volume of the ingredients and the fact that they're not fully incorporated yet. But it's kind of interesting. The honey is much smoother than granulated sugar would be. And going for the spatula to get the last bits in the bowl here. Okay. One last scrape. I hate leaving things behind. Yes, some people like licking the bowl. This one, I don't particularly care one way or the other, but I just hate leaving the bits behind, so there we go. The good thing is you don't get to see the dishes in the sink. All right, this is coming together real quick here. Kind of a medium thickness batter, probably a little softer because it's going to get all sorts of rolled oats and things. I'd call it thicker than a bread batter, softer than a cookie dough right now. Okay, that's that part. Now we're going to add oats, raisins, water, and vanilla. So I'm going to start with the vanilla actually, which is 1 teaspoonful. I usually don't measure, but today I happen to have a teaspoon nearby, so there it is. And a 1/4 cup raisins. I'm going to use my 1/2 cup. There we go. And just measure under. And oats, 1½ cup oatmeal. 1, 2, 3. And it says 1 tablespoon hot water, which will be interesting. My instinct is that this is going to activate the gluten a little bit in the flour, perhaps to help bind this all together, but let's see how that goes. I'm going to start some water at the sink getting hot as I start to mix this. That glare is awful. Let me see what I can do. Hey, that's better. Okay. Warm water, not quite there yet. So this batter, with the inclusion of the dry ingredients, is actually still softer than I thought it would be. You can see pretty tender actually. All right, I'm going to use my 1/2 cup just to hold this water. And 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3. And in we go. Now it's interesting. I wouldn't have expected water, so we're going to see how this goes. I would expect water in something like a pie crust or a biscuit. Again, to help develop the glutens a little bit and to help provide a little additional liquid on top of the fat that you'd get from shortening or butter or whatever your preferred fat is for a crust or a shortbread. Okay, and then this says, mix thoroughly, drop by teaspoonfuls onto cookie sheet, bake at 375 for 25 minutes, makes 5 dozens. So I'm going to prep a couple of cookie sheets here, preheat the oven, do the dishes, and I'll be right back with you. All right, I've got my oven preheating. I've done some dishes, or at least got them in the dishwasher. And I have, yes, it's jelly roll pans and not baking sheets. And I have a knockoff Silplat on here, the silicone baking sheet, just because I hate when things stick. And it's so easy to clean these up. I have my scoop. It's probably a little more than a teaspoon. It's probably closer to a tablespoon, but it should give a nice consistent size cookie for these. So we'll see how they go. I do think this dough is pretty soft still. But let's see, probably 3 across. Does make a nice full scoop because it is soft, so it kind of mushes in there nicely. And this is what I'm going to try first. 3 across on the tray, and probably four down, 3 up, 4 down, 4 down, 3 up. I don't know. Let's put a dozen on the cookie tray and see what happens. Interestingly enough, this recipe does say that you can omit the raisins and substitute a 1/4 cup chopped cherries, or a 1/2 cup chocolate chips, or a 1/2 cup coconut. Some other day I'll probably try that. I think I'd probably prefer the cherry. Maybe cherry coconut would be interesting, but I did want to try this at least semi-close to the recipe today, so let's see what we got. This recipe says that it'll make 5 dozen cookies. I think that's very doubtful given the size of these scoops. A dozen fits on the cookie sheet, but it's a little tight. We'll see how much they spread. With a butter cookie, I would say they're going to spread and hit each other with this size scoop. We'll see what the butter, the shortening, and the honey does. I don't know. We're going to find out. So my oven just hit temperature. I'm going to chuck this first pan in, prep a second pan. I'm not going to put the second pan in. I'm going to actually try to chill them first, see if that makes any difference, and we'll go from there. So into the oven goes the pan. Timer 375 for 25 minutes. I'm going to set it at 20, see what it looks like, and we'll go from there. All right, so interestingly enough, the first batch puffed up like crazy, puffy, but they were dark on the bottom, and they're very chewy. They only took about 15 minutes to cook instead of 25, so I'm wondering if my oven runs hot. I have a thermometer in there now as the second batch cooks. But these, they're cakey. They're definitely done. And they're very tender and chewy. So let me, still warm. Ooh. So there's definitely honey flavor. The cinnamon goes really well with it and just kind of brings forward the sweetness. They're not overpoweringly cinnamony. There's a little bit of texture from the oatmeal, but not too much. It's very much a cakey texture. The raisins basically disappear. My heavy 1/4 cup, just kind of maybe 2 or 3 a cookie, based on the size of this batch. So that's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. I do taste the roast flavor of the honey because it does caramelize quickly. I'm going to see if I can get this next batch not to get quite as dark. These are not bad. They're not perfect yet. All right, second batch out of the oven. These look a little bit better than these. I have not tried one yet, so let's see how these go. These still took only about 13 minutes instead of 25. I did decrease the oven temperature by about 5 degrees. Didn't seem to have made a difference. The bottom is still getting darker than the top. They're very cakey still. But the flavor's better. I did have one of the other ones when it was cool. You get a little bit of less of the forward honey flavor with the cool cookie versus the warm cookie, but they're both very good. I have another batch in now. I tried bringing the temperature back up to 375 as it was intended, so we'll see how long those bake for. And I still have my batch in the fridge to see if chilling them makes any difference as well. These don't spread very much. They definitely rise before they spread, so they are a nice puffy cake cookie. All right, batch 3. It's actually only 7 cookies because it's the end of actually the batter. I took it out even earlier, probably at about the 10-minute mark. I thought they might be too underdone because the tops were very much still glossy and tender to the touch, but the bottoms were just starting to get color. They're really good. I think this might be a 10-minute recipe instead of a 25, which I find really interesting, especially since my oven thermometer is saying I'm probably at about 360 instead of 375. So I'm not sure where that time came from for this recipe, but shorter is better. And use your baking sense. So if you see the bottom starting to get brown and the tops are just starting to be tender to the touch, pull them. It's still very cakey, completely done through. Definitely the best flavor. And I love the gloss on the top of these cookies. I still haven't done the, well, the chilled cookies aren't done yet. I did just put them in the oven. So we'll see how that goes. And this recipe that says it makes 5 dozen made about 3.5 for me. So it's actually not too far off. It means that scoop is probably what, 2.5, 2 teaspoons instead of 1 teaspoon, which is what the recipe calls for, but really good. We've run the gamut of cookies today. We got the overdone ones, still tender, little burnt tasting. We've got the medium done ones, good, but probably a little dry now that they're cool. We've got the just on the edge done ones. This was that mini batch, well, half a tray remaining. And now we've got these that just came out of the oven. These are the ones that were chilled in the fridge before putting in the oven. Now, I don't think chilling the dough made much of a difference, but I do think chilling the pan made a difference. And I say that because the bottoms are finishing before the rest of the dough is. So I'm going to break this one open. Super tender. It's still warm. Very cakey, as you can see. And I think this is the way it should be. So I would say make sure that your tray is actually cool, if not chilled, before putting the batter on. And then pull them out when the tops are just starting to look a little bit drier and the bottoms are just turning golden. If you don't wait long enough, the center of the top is actually not quite done. Great cookie. I hope y'all enjoy. I'll put the recipe in the description. Thanks.